Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: students couldn't get refunds on their unused print card money, so they printed thousands of blank pages until their balance was 0. The second story: boss orders a weekend email blackout for everyone in the company. Boss realizes he cannot access his emails. I get a raise. The third story: maintenance worker opens school windows. Principal demands they always be open. Worker complies, opening windows in freezing weather. And the first story is: no refunds on our print cards? Then nobody gets to print. Years upon years ago, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, or sometime in the past 2 decades, I went to get a piece of paper that said I was officially smart. College was pretty standard, but I was reminded of this past story. Every year, each student was given a library print card with $250 on it, which was meant to last you the year. If you needed to print or copy more, you could reload it with your own money. By the end of my degree, myself and quite a few people from our class had almost $1,000 on our cards. Since our program did very little printing or copying, barely had any hard copies of anything at all. Our lecturers scanned everything online, and if some material was needed, one of us would scan and share with everyone. Even most of our projects and reports were handed in online, aside from the traditional major reports which always had to be printed, bound, etc. The problem? There were no refunds on that money. As far as the admin were concerned, that money was to be used in the library or the print center or not at all. $1,000 is a nice chunk of change even for someone who isn't a student at the end of their degree, so needless to say, we were peeved off. We tried taking this all the way up to the dean of students, but not surprisingly, nothing happened. In retrospect, it honestly could be that no one had any idea how to offer a refund, so they just dug their heels in, but that's years of institutional experience speaking. Back then, it just made us angry. Then, since we were about to get our pieces of paper that said we were officially smart, we decided to be smart. If we could only use our money at the library, that's where we were going to use it. Back then, it cost 5 cents for each page of black and white paper. Each of us had nearly 20,000 pages of black and white to print, so that's what we did. We commandeered several computers and created Word files with 100 blank pages. We didn't want to be D's to the environment, and we set them to print 200 times or thereabouts. We each calculated our page total individually to get them exactly right. We each chose a different printer and hit send, within seconds as other projects previously queued finished printing. We had control of all the library's printers. If a printer ran out of paper, an unsuspecting student would refill the tray, hoping that was why their print had stalled, and our torrent of blank pages would spill forth once again. We didn't expect this to get too far, but fate played into our hands. The librarians were all lovely ladies and gentlemen, but they knew how to search for and check out books. Canceling a print job was far beyond their capabilities. Student volunteers knew what they were doing, but had no access to the print queues. Only IT had that. IT was only able to come by later that day, and we still had hundreds of dollars left on our cards. We ended up doing this 2 or 3 times a week during the last month until all of our money was used up. Story of the library print cards and the ingenious revenge taken by the students is both amusing and relatable. Students' reaction to the situation is a great example of using creativity and resourcefulness to achieve a desired outcome. Librarians were like, "What the printer's going on here?" as blank pages kept spewing out of the printers non-stop. And those unsuspecting students who tried to refill the trays, only to have more blank pages come out, talk about a printer's nightmare, haha. These students got the last laugh by using up every last cent in the most epic way possible. I'm sure they graduated feeling not just smart, but also accomplished and satisfied with their final act of rebellion. Way to go, smarties. The second story is: boss wants to cut off all employees and workers from their email access over the weekend, but doesn't understand the consequences. The story starts with me and my company. I'm a 30-year-old businesswoman who works in an IT service in a bank space. I'm the girl for everything, basically, but I'm a specialist for first-level support, administration and backup, sometimes even networking. Even when I'm not head of my IT department, I'm basically had all the responsibilities of them, but unfortunately my pay grade doesn't reflect that at all. I think of my boss in my IT department as kind of lazy, if not incompetent. He even brags about getting so much money for basically doing nothing. I have a 40-hour week, but since the whole IT department is my responsibility, I need to keep track of the servers and maybe problems that can occur 24/7. This is mostly done via emails. When the server status gives out a warning or a failure, I will get notified, and then I'm fixing the problem over remote desktop or going to the company itself. even in my free time. I wouldn't mind this, but I'm not getting paid for this. But on the other hand, I'm getting punished when something is wrong. My boss's boss wasn't that much better. Since it was a fancy bank, everyone should be in a suit the whole time, to let it look professional, best with a skirt and high heels. Only problem is when you work in the first level support, you need to do a lot of behind the scenes work, like slipping under the desk to do or repair cable management, doing work on the server rack, and doing lots of other activities that makes you dirty. You can imagine that this worn out my business clothes really fast, and not only that, they were so impractical and really made my work harder. So I changed my clothes to a comfy hoodie and work pants to fit the work I'm doing a bit better. When my boss saw me, he was furious, demanded I can't look like a poor hobo inside his bank. I told him that I demand work clothes for both occasions because they're expensive and gets worn out quickly. He refuses, and I wasn't really happy about this. So much for the introduction. Someday my boss's boss, head of the whole company, called me. He had a plan. He wanted to create quiet hours. Means he didn't want his employees working on weekends to let them rest properly. At first glance you could say, hey, that's a nice idea. Yeah, no, he just didn't like to pay them for overwork because he got into some legal trouble with overwork paying in general. Not only that, some employees have strict deadlines and need the extra time to get work done. To actively ensure nobody can't work over the weekend, he wanted the following. Please make sure no one can access their emails and remote desktop over the weekend, no exceptions. Since we had a ticket system and be able to attach emails to tickets, I asked him to write an official work task. This has two reasons. First, I like everything documented. Second, I have something to protect and secure myself if the task I was given is incorrect. And it's exactly this that saved me. So I was in my office desk again, thinking how to get the task done and what implication it will have, and then it was clear to me what it meant. The email came from my boss with the task, and indeed he wrote, for everyone, no exceptions. I was thinking to myself, should I write them, the implications it would have? After thinking, I thought of how I'm treated as a worker, and I decided against it. I was working immediately at this task, and made an automated process to block every access to emails after Friday 6 p.m. to Monday 6 a.m. Weekend came and it was Saturday, and I was calm, relaxed, because if you've not noticed by now, by cutting down everyone's emails means of course that I don't receive any updates on the servers. I can't possibly work on it because my remote access is also cut, of course. If you think you could forward your work email address to your private address, no, I can't because we have a very strict data protection. Nothing is allowed to go out. I'm happy. It's still Saturday, middle of the day. I'm cooking myself and my husband a nice meal, and my telephone rings. It's my boss's boss. He talks with a stressed voice and told me that he can't access his emails. I needed a second to process this, but I responded, that doesn't surprise me at all since you ordered me to cut everyone's email access without exceptions. He was angry, very angry, and told me that this obviously doesn't count for him. I told him that he specifically told me that there are no exceptions and he stated everyone. He then argued that this wasn't how he phrased it, so I reread him his own email. After that, he was silent for a moment. He noticed his flaw in his logic. I broke the silence and asked him, sir, if you still want access to your emails on the weekend, that's no problem. Please send me a request per email and I will work first thing on the morning. A bit angry again, he replied that he wants to have it done immediately, and I calmly explained to him that I can't do this, since my remote access is also blocked like he ordered. He hung up. 10 minutes later, he calls me again. He asks me calmly if I can fix the problem right now when he pays me for my overwork. He also wants me to be available at any time, means I should receive my emails and be able to work remote, and that this will raise my pay grade by a lot. I thought that this is the perfect opportunity. I agree to that condition and pay raise, but only when my coworkers and I finally get work clothes. He agreed. I don't want something fancy as work clothes, it's just that my personal expensive clothes gets worn out quickly. Since then, my work situation drastically improved, and mostly only because I maliciously complied, well aware of the consequences of the given task. In my honest opinion, it was a valuable lesson for my boss to let them have a well-thought concept before giving the official task. And I'm really effing glad that I got the task written down. This probably saved me the most because he can't argue in what he wrote himself. It's always fun when bosses make decisions without understanding the consequences. Boss wanted to give his employees a break by cutting off their email access, but didn't realize that the IT department relies on email to monitor the servers. Oops. I also found it hilarious that the boss was upset that he couldn't access his emails, even though he was the one who ordered the email ban in the first place. Some people never think things through. And poor IT girl. Not only is she doing the work of an entire department, but she's also expected to wear high heels and a skirt while crawling under desks and fixing servers? That's like asking a firefighter to wear stilettos. It's not just impractical, it's downright dangerous. The last story is, always open the windows. A bit of backstory first. I work as the head maintenance person in a school in my city in Canada, and to say I have my hands full is an understatement. The school is 99 years old, turning 100 in July. It's been updated over the year, but the building is made out of brick, and I'm constantly trying to adjust the hydronic heating system throughout the day, as the building soaks up heat and keeps it. As an attempt to mitigate the heat, I've found that opening all the windows in the school first thing in the morning before the staff comes in, and they can open or close the windows as they wish. Now, where I am, our weather is pretty weird, and yesterday it was cold, as in it had been 30 plus Celsius, Monday and Tuesday, and yesterday it was sitting at 4 Celsius with a wind chill that brought it to 0. So, considering the temperature inside the school was sitting at 10°C, I opted to not open windows that morning and perform my morning routine. Well, apparently the principal, my supervisor for the building, felt I had made the wrong decision and ripped me a new one, telling me to always open the windows from now on. Cue malicious compliance. Before leaving, I confirmed that he indeed wanted them open regardless of the outside temperature, including the next day, Friday/today, and a day with no students. He said yes, and if any staff had issues, I was to get them to complain to him, and motioned me to leave his office. So today I got up and checked the weather before going into work. It said it was currently -1°C and -4°C with the wind. On top of that, we got snow. The entire trip to work, I had this evil grin on my face, and as soon as I get in, I rushed to open every window in the school, even the vents for the bathrooms, and I continued with my morning routine, pleased with what I did. Now, since there weren't any classes that day, the majority of staff didn't even show up till 10:30, 3 hours since I had opened the windows, and it was very cold inside the school, and all of a sudden, I get a bunch of texts from staff about their cold rooms. I proceed to tell every single one of them that the principal had said, and shortly after I'm called to his office. As soon as I open the door, I can tell that he's very angry and very cold, and demands to know why I opened all the windows this morning. All I get to say is, well, yesterday you said, and he calmly says, wait. Now, I'm known for being a smart A at work, and between being maliciously compliant and getting petty revenge on people, I've apparently built up a name for myself within the entirety of all 50 schools in my board. My union reps love me. He now realizes that he's effed up, and starts laughing about it. He admits he's screwed up his wording and he's been having a rough couple of days, and apparently this made his week, and says how he's now going to leave it to me to decide when the windows should be opened. We both had a very good laugh, and he ended up buying the staff lunch. After the teachers heard what happened, they all bugged him a bit, but it was all in fun. In the end, we all had some fun and a good laugh. Edit. A hot water heating system where the hot water transfers heat into the air using fin tubes. It usually has glycol in it to keep it from freezing in colder temps. Think in-floor heating or heated driveway. OP's response to the principal's request is a great example of malicious compliance. A clever way to follow instructions in a way that technically fulfills the request, but in a way that's unexpected or amusing. Refreshing to see how the principal was able to admit his mistake and laugh it off, rather than getting defensive or angry. This kind of humility and willingness to admit fault is essential for fostering positive relationships and building trust with colleagues. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.